This video contains spoilers for Deltarune. Play it, fool! Now that the fools are gone, let's talk about the Roaring Knight. A character we know very little about, but just enough to theorize about. But first, let's recap the relevant stuff. Not much point in talking about Tenna when we don't really talk about him much. So let's just get straight to the end of Chapter 3, where we finally meet the Knight. Notably, the Knight has an otherworldly appearance, and what looks like antlers. Their design even resembles the two figures beside the Titan in the Roaring Prophecy, indicating there may be multiple Knights. At least two. If you lose this fight, the Knight will swoon both Susie and Ralsei, but will only down Chris. However, if you win this fight, the Knight will have Chris kneel into their downed sprite, as if they had lost. Some believe that this is the Knight knighting Chris. I'm not entirely sure how I feel on that. It's kind of up in the air to me. It could be, it could not be. It's imagery. It's similar imagery, that's for sure. Anyway, this act of mercy towards Chris implies that the Knight is working with Chris. After beating the Knight, their sword gets chipped, and you get the Shadow Crystal and an extra weapon for Chris. This might mean that Shadow Crystals come from the Knight. After this fight, Undyne shows up and gets kidnapped by the Knight. We chase after them, running from the Dark World straight to the Light World, all the way to the shelter, revealing there is a hidden Dark World there. Unfortunately, we're too late. The shelter is locked. Out of anger and frustration, Susie slams the door until a panel falls off, revealing an electronic lock with 3 symbols on it. A pine tree, an officer's badge, and the Deltarune. After Susie leaves, Chris moves toward the lock, and the door opens. It's unclear whether Chris opened it themselves, or if it was opened from the inside. And then the chapter ends. We have no clue what happened after that. Why, Toby? Moving to Chapter 4, Susie reckons that the symbols show who has the lock combinations to unlock the shelter. She believes the pine tree is for the Holiday family, the officer's badge, the police, and the Deltarune for the church. Going to the police station and asking Napstablook about it, he says that the mayor did give Undyne some kind of code. Great! How are we getting that? Searching around the church, we don't find anything either. So, we end up asking Noelle, the mayor's daughter, if we could study with her. Once at the Holiday residence, Susie distracts Noelle, letting us look for clues. In Dessa's room, we find her guitar and a code taped inside. We begin to read the code. 1, 2, 2, before Chris interrupts by ripping out their soul and hiding it in a room full of empty presents. Luckily, we escape through a vent. Looking through the vents, Asgore can be seen in Carol's room, talking to himself about how he tried to protect everyone, and a mysterious black shard, possibly a shadow crystal. Now why would the mayor have a shadow crystal? Or whatever that is, really. Moving forward, Chris can be found in the kitchen, listening to someone on the phone. They're just a bit too far away to hear the full conversation, but we can hear them say, "Dark Fountain. Next. Susie must not get guitar. And church tonight." There is more, but this is all the relevance. Whoever this is, they're clearly working with Chris. Eventually, after a bit of a kerfuffle with Chris, Susie gets their hands on the guitar. Chris then tells the person on the phone that Susie got Dessa's guitar, and they say, "I'll be right there." Soon after, Carol shows up, grabbing the guitar and kicking Susie out. This shows that Carol and Chris are working together to open the Dark Fountains. But for what end? The only reason I can think of is to find Des. At the end of the chapter, we once again meet the Knight. Susie boasts that we could easily take them down in the light world. The Knight begins laughing and then creates a massive dark fountain. This starts the formation of a titan, a monstrous being born from darkness, towering above everything. All you can do is run. And then you meet them, face to face. Now, fight God. In the end, the only way to win is to jump inside the Titan and use the soul's light to dissipate the Titan's darkness. I feel like I went a little overboard when I wrote this stuff, but I'm not gonna undo it. I'm at least gonna record the whole thing, and then I'll decide later if it's too much. Now that we're all on the same page, let's move on to the candidates. Seeing as how the Knight clearly has some form of antler, it's easy to deduce that they're a deer. The only deers we're aware of are Noelle, Rudy, Carol, and the missing December. First, let's go over the ones who are unlikely. Noelle and Rudy. In Chapter 2, Noelle clearly has no clue what's going on, and at the end, believes it's all a dream, easily ruling her out. Also, the weird route just really conflicts with Noelle being the Knight. And then all of the angel imagery as well, but like that's a whole other thing. On to Rudy. He's been in the hospital the entire game. The only time we've seen him outside of the hospital is in Chapter 4 at church, and right after, he's right back in the hospital. Seems unlikely, but I'm not gonna rule him out entirely. Genuinely, there might be a small chance that Rudy is the Knight. There is no evidence for it, but it's not impossible. Now, let's go into somebody who has more evidence piled against them. Carol Holiday. Carol is shown working with Chris to open dark fountains, and the Knight shows Chris mercy during the Chapter 3 fight. And we also see Asgore talking about some black shard in their room, which is possibly a shadow crystal. We're still not sure. She even has a giant katana in her kitchen, similar to the Knight's weapon. There's multiple different threads linking Carol to the Knight. But another world. Wait. But that can't. This is the Knight, and I can prove it! What? I spent $50 on that joke.
Knight.
Of course I'm going to keep using it. It kind of looks like the reflection of that is going to make this hard to read. I can't fix that, because that light is necessary for you to be able to see me properly. So you're just going to have to deal with that. The Knight, pictured here, seems way too unnatural and corrupted for them to just be a normal lightener. Now the obvious other option is a darkener, and there's some problems with that as well. As you can see, because I just wrote it, the Knight goes into the light world, which in Chapter 3 we have clearly been shown darkeners can't do that. So we've got ourselves a bit of a conundrum. Can't be a lightener, because it doesn't look anything like a normal lightener would. And it can't be a darkener, because it goes into the light world. So what the heck is this Knight? That's slightly crooked now. I'm not fixing it. But what if, instead of a lightener, instead of a darkener, we had a corrupted Lightner. I think that would make a lot of sense. In Chapter 3, what we get is Undyne, taken to the shelter, revealing a dark world within that shelter. How could we possibly link this to December holiday? We don't necessarily have perfectly concrete evidence, but I do happen to know of a small thing hidden within the game's code that can shed a little light on our predicament, I guess. You see, there's unused dialogue in each chapter of the game that seem to be coming from the same character. Chapter 1 and 2 just seem like they've just gotten within wherever it is they are. They can't see anything. They can't even necessarily hear anything, except for bits and pieces of scratching sometimes. The interesting note within these unused bits of dialogue is this right here. I always did have that nightmare. Walking into the darkness, with the light shining from the doorway, then the door slams behind me, and everything goes black. Is this that nightmare? Or was everything else a dream? Now, I would like you to think for a second if this sounds familiar at all, because it reminds me of the first time Chris and Susie fell into the Dark Worlds. Whoever this is, they were clearly put into some kind of Dark World. Or maybe went into one themselves. They stumbled upon one, makes more sense, to be honest. Anyhow, and we've sealed every dark fountain that we've ever come across, aside for the one in the school for whatever reason. Except, we still haven't gone to the Dark World in the shelter. I hope I'm pointing at that. Yes, I am. Cool. So, whoever this is probably fell into the shelter's Dark World. I probably should note that that unused dialogue was specifically the latter half of Chapter 3's unused text dialogue. I believe some people call it the Goner. Where was I? Right, the Goner code stuff. I don't really need to continue the Goner code talk. There's really no link between this and any Goner stuff. It's not that... It doesn't seem like they're connected, to be honest. Where do we take this from here? I completely skipped all of the... I completely skipped past all of my linking the night to Dark Worlds, and I just went straight to trying to link the night to a corrupted Lightner. And I don't hate that. So, we have potential, not concrete evidence, but potential confirmation that a Lightner went into a Dark World. Sounds very familiar to our first interactions with the Dark World. And the only Dark World we have yet to seal is the one in the shelter, meaning it is more than likely that this Lightner is in the shelter. I now have to clean this off. Now, let's try to connect the night to a corrupted Lightner. And once we do that, maybe we can just presume it's death, I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. First, the night is connected to the Titan. As you can see here, the Knight and the Titan share very similar color palettes. Both are, black with white outlines. The Titan's a bit more detailed though, because it's a significantly bigger sprite. But of course, just because they have similar color palettes doesn't mean much. The thing I probably should have brought up first, to be honest, is the Roaring Prophecy. You see, in the Roaring, there are two figures right next to that big Titan in the middle that share a striking resemblance to our knight, Cat Y. Hi, here is your entrance back into the above world. So clearly, there's a connection between both the Titan and the Knight. How do we connect the Knight to dark fountains? I mean, that's kind of easy, actually. The depths underscore image. This is a image file found in the code of the game that is used for multiple different things. 3 in particular. Thing 1, the fountains. Thing 2, the pillar that the Titan spawned from. And thing number 3, the Titan's very insides. Clearly connecting the Titan to the depths image. So I feel that if everything connected to the Titan itself uses the depths image, then they all must come from a very similar place. Unfortunately, that fell. Unfortunately, we don't have a real clear connection between the night and the depths image. Unless... I really have no clue what this edit is going to look like. We have the dark fountain, we have a lightener, and we have the night. We just have to connect all of these together. Now, we already have a big connection between the lightener and the dark fountain. It's pretty simple. The unused text shows a lightener falling into a dark fountain. It's pretty simple and easy. But how do we connect the lightener to corruption and corruption to the night? We've already seen what happens when the darkness gets strong enough to create a Titan. All it knows is destruction. Seems a bit mindless and corrupted, yes. We've seen the night's very corrupted form, pictured here again in case you forgot it, but that connection between the lightener and corruption doesn't seem entirely great right now. But luckily, we have an answer. You see, we have a connection between corruption and the dark fountains. In Undertale 6th anniversary, so we play Deltarune Chapter 1 for some reason, -live, Toby Fox himself says this.
I mean, I think that fountain definitely changed his behavior. For sure.
So that clearly shows dark fountains can change the way people act. In other words, the dark fountain can corrupt somebody. Now we have linked corruption to the night, corruption to the dark fountain, and the dark fountain to a lightener. It is clear that from all of this you can deduce, at the very least, the night is a corrupted lightener who fell into a dark fountain, or something of that nature. Now the question is, who exactly is that lightener? So the unused text, clearly from a lightener, because it shows them going into the dark fountain in Chapter 3. How do we even know who this bloody lightener is? Honestly, we have no bloody clue. The most we can do is this. All that we can really do is say whoever it is, they went missing. Who do we know who has gone missing? What bloody color do I want to use? The only person in hometown who we have confirmed missing is December Holiday, who we can easily connect to Des Holiday, as they are the same person. Des is just a nickname. Now, that's really all we have as far as potential connections to the unused text. Someone went missing. Des is the only one we know who was missing. Unused text, likely Des. And thus, they're the ones who fell into a dark world. Potentially later we will find that they fell into the dark fountain itself and became corrupted by it, turning them into the night themselves. All of this so far is just conjecture, and there's not much actually linking Des to the night. So why don't I show you what I've found? I need more fluid. I just hit the mic, and that wasn't fun. For you, it didn't hurt me at all. And here we have made it to the penultimate section of this live-action portion, linking Des to the night. We've also reached the part where my interest in writing well enough for you to be able to read it has started to dwindle. You see, the knight has a bat-like sword. I should note that that's really only at the start of the fight with the knight. The knight holds out their hand, and from it, a bat appears. They swing it back, and it begins to look more like a sword at that point. Yeah! What do I do with this? I can point with the bat now. It's slightly easier too. So, we have a bat-like sword, but how do we connect Des to bats? It's not that hard. Des's room has a bat within it, and there's this line of dialogue in which Noel says that Des used a wiffle bat to hit Chris because they were lying. Maybe not directly linked to bats per se, but a direct link to baseball and Des is in Chapter 2, where Noel wishes Des could see the baseball moon. Just another potential link to Des and baseball, and thus bats. Mind you, the bat in Des's room was a wiffle bat, and it was very much broken. Probably the same bat that they used to hit Chris because they were lying. Other than being missing, the only thing we really know about this person is that they liked baseball. You don't just do that, Toby! Well, okay then. Bloody heck, mate. Gotta go put this up now. My energy is definitely waning as we continue. But let's continue. I thought there were more connections. So apparently, the bat and the bat-like sword are like the only real direct connections I wrote in my script. The other connections are like tangential. Tangerine. So the only other links we really have are tangerines. The most tangential one, Des is a deer. The knight has antlers. So all the other tangential stuff, I should maybe just write down the other stuff and you'll know what that means. The other stuff, the connections that we've already made. I think this one is the most tangential tangerine one we have yet. Is a teen. And that bloody pose. I don't much know or even really care if this pose is really just like a defiant teen kinda pose, but a lot of different people have been using that pose as potential evidence that the knight is Des. So I may as well bring it up. They'd probably use a less couth word like aura farming, whatever the heck that means. Well, I knew it was a matter of time.
I take it that part wasn't scripted.
I'm not sure how you can script a light falling. I taped it to make sure it wouldn't fall, and then it did anyway. The light has been put back, but it's not exactly the same. It fell, the lighting is now different. I don't know what to do about that. I don't even know what I was bloody talking about at this point. Oh yeah, that pose! So, unfortunately, we kinda have to leave the connections here. The bat, sword thing. Okay, so I was cut off mid-sentence. I barely remember what I was talking about. The card is full, so I had to grab a second one. 64 gigs, see? Completely full. Mind you, not all of it was me doing all of this stuff. A lot of it was a bunch of random photos I took of birds. And Raichu. If you watched the Big Run video, you've seen the Raichu photos. Well, one of them. The other one I bothered editing for that video. I might edit more later. I don't know. Not the best connections, I will admit. Let's move on to the next section, why don't we? We are finally at the home stretch, fellows. Counters. What counters are there. The biggest one that I chose to put in yellow, maybe you can read it, is the fact that all of the evidence is circumstantial. Well, not entirely. All of the deaths connection evidence is circumstantial. That's more accurate as to my thoughts. Because a lot of the things I've said aren't particularly circumstantial per se, it's just the way I connect them all. The Titans to the Night stuff I think is pretty solid. And then even like the Dark Fountain to a corrupted Lightner is pretty solid. In my personal opinion. It's possible, but I also know I'm not the one writing Deltarune, so I could be very wrong here. I've adjusted the markers because of reasons. The Knight's Weapon. Now, I did link the Knight's Weapon to a bat, but as we've mentioned in the Carol section, she happens to have a giant katana in her kitchen. Along with her own room, there's a smaller katana in there as well. The Knight's Weapon is very similar to a katana, especially when it's actually being used. It is very similar to a katana. It's only really at the beginning where it looks like a bat. It could also be a katana, not a bat. But you know, another thing. What the heck does the Knight want? Like, serious. All we've seen is that they, along with Chris, have been creating dark fountains. Oh yeah, that was the thing I was going to put here instead. That's what I'm going to do, actually. So, the bigger one, the Knight has clearly been shown to be working with Chris. That whole bit where they do the whole knighting thing, which I'm still not entirely sure if that was them knighting Chris or what. Like, sure, it's similar imagery, but I don't know. And then the whole just downing them instead of swooning if you lose stuff. It seems clear that the Knight, at the very least, has something revolving Chris. Probably that they're working together. And who do we know is working with Chris? Exactly. I was going to try to be a bit more eloquent than this, but like, yeah, Carol is. You fools. So it's kind of like, you know, feels like there's a bit more evidence for Carol than Des, to be honest. But at the same time, it doesn't really feel right. Because if we quickly go with the last marker that I have, and write this next thing, there's still the whole unnatural and distorted design, making it hard for me to reconcile the fact that Carol is for sure the Knight. And as stated earlier, I do think Des is the Knight. That feels slightly better with what we have. But again, I do completely admit there is more direct evidence for Carol being the Knight than for Des as of right now. In a year when Chapter 5 becomes a thing, that might change. It'd be somewhat weird if it didn't change, to be perfectly honest. So unfortunately this video kinda has to end on an unsatisfying note. Carol feels more likely with the evidence that we currently have. I'm just not sure if I could believe that Carol's Dark World form looks like this, and can do this. Especially this. Like, seriously, those are ribs. So close and yet so far. But wait, there's one thing I forgot about. I forgot about members. Members. You get updates on everything I'm doing. You get early access to these bloody videos. You get your name in these bloody videos. And you can join the Switch 2 fund. All for just $1 a month. I forgot to write a month. A month! Am I gonna put this at the end of the video? I have no clue! I hit the ceiling with that. This thing is really bloody long. Memberships exist. If I'm ever going to do like a membership kind of thing in my videos, it's literally just gonna be a cut to this. I'm literally not gonna erase this so I can take as many photos as I want. Oh no, I dropped my stick.